Welcome back to Fate of the Union. In today's video, I wanted to cover briefly a man who's been getting more public attention lately, and that's mainly due to the advocacy for his release from that of Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick is now calling for the release of Mumia Abu-Jamal, who's serving a life sentence for killing a Philadelphia police officer in 1981. As you can see, in a second, we're going to go into a video here by a man named Michael Smerconish. He was a Philadelphia area radio host at the time and is now a contributor at CNN and co-authored a book about the case and the life of the police officer with the officer's widow. A little bit of background on the case. At 3:55 a.m. on December 9th, 1981, in Philadelphia, close to the intersection at 13th and Locust Streets, Philadelphia Police Department Officer Daniel Faulkner conducted a traffic stop on a vehicle belonging to and driven by William Cook, who coincidentally was Abu-Jamal's younger brother. Now, at some point after the stop was made, Abu-Jamal was nearby and saw that Faulkner and Cook became engaged in a physical confrontation. Abu-Jamal was driving his cab in the vicinity, and after he saw that altercation start, he parked and ran across the street to intervene. Faulkner was subsequently shot in the back. After being shot in the back, he was then shot point-blank range between the eyes. Faulkner, of course, died at the scene from the gunshot to his head. When police arrived at the scene and arrested Abu-Jamal, he was found wearing a shoulder holster. His revolver, which had 5 spent cartridges, was beside him. Now, after the shooting of Officer Faulkner, Abu-Jamal very quickly became a martyr-type figure on the left, and his case differs a little bit from a death row inmate we spoke about in the past, that of Kevin Cooper, in that Kevin Cooper's kind of mythical figure status on the left really didn't come to be during his trial, certainly before it. He really kind of assumed this position of martyrdom certainly after the first round of appeals, and really has become more of this figure in a post creation of social media type ages. It's really within the last decade Cooper has taken on this kind of status among the left. But it's a little bit different in this case, because if you look into the background of Abu-Jamal, he was involved with the Black Panther Party. He had certain social and political commentary and social justice writings before the case, and then certainly during and after the trial as well. And he continues to be active in his written commentary on social justice, even as an inmate behind bars. But here's a little excerpt from Smerconish. He recently appeared on CNN and kind of gave an overview of his take of Colin Kaepernick's advocacy, as well as his take on the case itself.
And for what it's worth, I think you were blackballed from football for exercising your speech, and that's not right. Except in extreme circumstances, no man should pay with his livelihood for speaking his mind. And I'm sure that's why no team has picked you up. Then again, while I'm a casual fan, I'm a bit out of my element when it comes to the X's and the O's of the NFL. And might I suggest that when it comes to Mumia Abu-Jamal, you are similarly out of your depth. I see that you've just called for the immediate release of this convicted cop killer, claiming that he was framed by a racist police department for the 1981 murder of Officer Danny Faulkner.
He had no record before he was arrested and framed for the death of a Philadelphia police officer. Since 1981, Mumia has maintained his innocence. His story has not changed. Mumia was shot, brutalized, arrested, and chained to a hospital bed. The first police officer assigned to him wrote in a report that the Negro male made no comment, as cited in Philly Mag. Yet 64 days into the investigation, another officer testified that Mumia had confessed to the killing. Mumia's story has not changed.
This is a subject I know a little something about. You could say that I literally wrote the book. This book. 2008, I co-authored Murdered by Mumia with Danny Faulkner's widow, Maureen. It was briefly a New York Times bestseller. By the way, neither of us accepted any proceeds from the sale of the book. So here's the short version based on trial testimony. On December 9, 1981, at about 4 a.m., 25-year-old Daniel Faulkner was executed while making what seemed like a routine traffic stop. Faulkner pulled over the brother of Abu-Jamal, a.k.a. Wesley Cook, who was driving his car the wrong way on a one-way street. Abu-Jamal was then working as a taxi driver. He saw the police stop from across the street. And 4 eyewitnesses testified at trial as to what happened next. Their testimony portrayed a horrific sequence. Abu-Jamal ran across the street, shot Officer Faulkner in the back, and then finally between the eyes. Before that final fatal shot, Officer Faulkner had himself discharged his gun, hitting Abu-Jamal in the stomach. With that bullet, you could say that he confirmed the identity of his executioner. When police arrived, Abu-Jamal was still wearing his shoulder holster. The murder weapon registered to him was next to him on the ground at the murder scene. He'd purchased it at a local sporting goods store. Ballistics tests verified that the bullets found in Abu-Jamal's gun were the same caliber, brand, and type as the fatal bullet removed from Officer Faulkner's brain.
And there you can see Smirkonish really go over the nuts and bolts of this case. And for a second, we'll go back to Colin Kaepernick's statement, which on multiple accounts really doesn't change the outcome of this case and really is irrelevant. First, the idea that Abu-Jamal has kept his story consistent to the extent that's even true since the fatal shooting back in 1981 and the trial and his incarceration thereafter is really irrelevant. I mean, people can lie for extended periods of time. Any consistencies in his story since the initial shooting is irrelevant to the overall case against him. Second, he was chained to a hospital bed. That's, of course, outlandish and over-emotionalized rhetoric from Colin Kaepernick. When somebody is suspected of a crime, but nevertheless suffered wounds himself, he is brought to the hospital for medical care, no doubt. But in the same way, he is a suspect and is handcuffed to the hospital bed in which he sits. That's so that A, he can get medical attention, but B, he's also not a flight risk at any point, and it at least minimizes the potential harm he can do to others since he is restricted in his movement. Next, the details of him being a Negro is clearly just one officer's perception and really tried his best to just note his observations of who he was looking at and who he examined. The fact that anyone perceives the term Negro as insensitive is really neither here nor there to the outcome of this case. And as Smirkonish correctly notes, not only was Abu-Jamal still holding the holster on his shoulder and had the gun nearby, but it was the exact caliber of that from Officer Faulkner's brain that for medical and autopsy reports later confirmed. This, combined with several witness statements attesting to the confrontation, combined again with the fact that Abu-Jamal was in fact in the area and was in fact related to the man that had the initial confrontation with Officer Faulkner, all but confirms that this is an open and shut case and that thus the conviction was justified in this case. Subsequent appeals have done nothing to free Abu-Jamal from jail, despite the numerous writings that he continues to produce from death row. In recent years, you've seen different political and social factions on either side of the debate, and it's broken down pretty much as you would assume. The Fraternal Order of Police, along with the local police department, law enforcement agencies, and of course Faulkner's family, support the conviction and the continued incarceration of Abu-Jamal. On the other side, you have groups like the NAACP, Amnesty International, and other social justice and Marxist-interested groups, not only advocating against the death penalty for Abu-Jamal, but actually an outright release, based on a supposedly biased jury, made up of nothing but allegations for the simple racial makeup of the jurors impaneled during trial. Let me know what you think about this case below, but I think it's just another instance of Colin Kaepernick and those on the really radicalized social justice left getting behind another martyr figure, a la Kevin Cooper. In this case, there was a fair trial, and any allegations otherwise amount to nothing more than superficial allegations based on racial makeup of the court. But let me know what you think below, and let me know if you think this is an indication of further advocacy we can see from Colin Kaepernick and other currently employed professional athletes, especially in the NFL.